Hello, good evening, and welcome to RTD's English News Edition. The major stories of this Monday, 15 February 2016 are: the head of state has received the letters of credence of 5 ambassadors. And on the international scene, El Nino devastating harvests in Southern Africa.
Those were the top series. Welcome to our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has received today the credential of 5 new ambassadors accredited to Djibouti. The diplomatic ballet at the Presidential Palace was started by the audience granted to the new ambassador of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Mr. Shamebo Fitamo Adebo. During his presentation of the credential, the ambassador of Ethiopia has made the promise to promote and strengthen relation of friendship and cooperation that the two countries enjoy in various files. The President of the Republic, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, and the new ambassador of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia addressed several issues of common interest between the two countries.
Fruits of the cordial and mutually beneficial relationship. Excellency, Ethiopia and Djibouti promote the same ideas in regional, continental, and international forums like IGAD, AU, and United Nations. During my stay here in Djibouti, I will further strengthen this tradition, and in particular, we shall work together to strengthen IGAD so that to expedite the regional economic integration process. Your Excellency, during my tenure, I will work in close consultation and cooperation with you and your government officials. I am at your disposal 24 hours a day, if you need me at any time. I am also confident that I will enjoy your support and wisdom like you did for my predecessor before. Your Excellency, once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and your government officials for the warm welcoming accorded to me since my arrival to this beautiful city of Djibouti. Thank you.
After the credential letters of the ambassador of Ethiopia, then it was the turn of ambassador of Togo, Mr. Nomlaki Ekpau, submit his credential to the head of state, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, as a non-resident ambassador of Togo. Several issues of common interest were discussed during this hearing. Then the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has received the new ambassador of the Union of Comoro, accredited to Djibouti, and the non-resident Mr. Asumani Yusuf Muduha Sharaf, who attended this credential to the head of state. During their hearing, the ambassador of Comoro Union of the mentioned corporation links between Djibouti and the Union of Comoro and ways of means of furthers.
Ambassadeur Assoumani Youssouf Mondoha, ambassadeur de l'Union des Comores auprès de la République de Djibouti. Au nom de son Excellence, Monsieur le docteur Ikili Loudouanine m'a chargé de vous transmettre les lettres de créance m'accréditant comme ambassadeur auprès de la République de Djibouti.
Then it was the turn of the new ambassador of Apostolic Union Luigi Bianco, to remit his letter of credence to the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh. Have attended to this hearing the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and the advisor of the President of the Republic for the Diplomatic Affairs, Ms. Fathia Jama'uddin. In the last place, the new ambassador of the Republic of Austria, Mr. Andreas Milan, has presented his credential to the head of state in the capacity of a non-resident ambassador accredited to Djibouti. The President of the Republic, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, would like to welcome the new ambassador of the Republic of Austria. Then the head of state and the new ambassador agreed to deepen the bilateral relation between the two countries. The new ambassador of Austria was accompanied by the honorary consul of Austria, Mr. De La Rue. Have attended the hearing of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and the advisor of the President, Ms. Fathia Jama'uddin.
De Djibouti, j'ai l'honneur de présenter les lettres de créance, parmi laquelle Sa Sainteté, le pape François, m'a nommé nonce apostolique dans la République de Djibouti, ainsi comme les lettres de rappel de mon prédécesseur.
The extraordinary ambassador and the plenipotentiary of the Republic of Djibouti to Ethiopia and permanent representative to the African Union and the Economic Commission for the Africa, Mr. Mohamed Idris Farah, was received by the Prime Minister today, Ethiopian of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, Mr. Haile Mariam Desalegn, in the presence of his advisor, the former Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Barkan, and the ambassador of Mr. Girma, Director of African Affairs, to the Department of Foreign Affairs. The Minister and the Ambassador of Djibouti it was happening in a review bilateral relation existing between the two countries, as well as the regional issues, including the situation in the Somalia and the preparation for the summit of a head of state and government of countries contributing to of police in Somalia. And the Djiboutian side, Mr. Abdi Mohammed, first Counselor of the Embassy of Republic of Djibouti and Ethiopia, take part at this meeting.
And now concerning the presidential election of April 8, next President of the USN, Mr. Ahmed Hamad Yusuf, issued a statement release announcing that the High Consul of USN at the NUN during the meeting chaired by himself in 30 February 2016, Mr. Omar Elmi Khaire, as the official candidate of the next presidential election on April 8. Communicate that not other person can compete in the election on behalf of the USN and quote.
The parliamentarians of the African Union, known as UPA, held this morning their second conference in Djibouti in the presence of the President of National Assembly. For more information, let's follow this comment. The second conference of African Parliamentary Union was opened under the patronage of the President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohamed Ali Hamad. The conference will continue until tomorrow in order to discuss the problem of migration of youth. The dedicated theme was the contribution of African migrants to the development of countries of origin and the destination. It was organized by the African Parliamentary Union in the presence of the Secretary General of the UPA, Mr. Kofi, the resident coordinator of the UN system and resident representative of the United Nations Development, the UNDP, Ms. Valerie Cliff, the head of a mission and head of a special office in the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, to the African Union, Mr. 18, and the many delegation of African parliamentarians, representative of the International Organization or the UN agencies, and as invited guests as observers. The conference was also attended by the members of the government, including Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Mohamed Kamel and many African parliamentarians in Djibouti, as well as representatives of the diplomatic corps based in Djibouti, to discuss issues related to the immigration to Europe and the Gulf of the countries. Let's recall that the first African Parliamentary Conference was held from 22 and 24 May 2008 in Rabat, Morocco, on the theme of Africa and migration. Challenges and solutions was expected. In this opening remark at the conference of the UPA Secretary General, Mr. Kofi was first of all welcome the organization of the Second African Parliamentary Conference, where he said that the phenomenon of migration, which is the subject of this reference conference, among others, the issues related to youth and stoppage of the poverty. The resident representative of the United Nations Development Programme in Djibouti, Ms. Valerie Khalif, for his part, has declared in his speech that migration is an issue of great importance as any particular link between migration and development. Today, migration has become a source of opportunities for the countries of destination and countries of origin, as well as for individual families and communities. Several issues are on the agenda of this important conference. This is, among other things, the development perspective on the migration and agenda of 2013 for the sustainable development of the legal framework and the international policy for migration, the correlation between migration and development, human rights, and strengthening the international cooperation to contain insecurity as a new challenge migrations.
As we all know, migration is a powerful manifestation of an individual's right to development and remains among humanity's oldest freedoms and actions against poverty. Allow me here for a moment to quote J.K. Galbraith, who nearly 40 years ago said, and I quote, "Migration selects those who most want help. It is good for the country to which they go. It helps break down the equilibrium of poverty in the country from which they come." Today, there are more people on the move than at any other time in recorded history. Migration has become a priority for virtually every country in the world, with South-South migration becoming as substantial as South-North migration, despite the attention often accorded to the South-North migration stream.
And in his speech, the President of the National Assembly said, as we know, the theme of our conference animate the debate today, Parliament, conflict, army, civil war is the most accurate reality of our time. This reality causes migration. Then he added that the organization of this African conference on migration is of a paramount importance, and this is due to the very moment when we observe in the world a massive influx of migrants. The Republic of Djibouti has always been confronted with the crisis. Djibouti currently hosts more than 1,000 of migrant majority from Ethiopia, Somalia, and Yemen. Through its international commitment and honor those with the name of sharing and solidarity, and thanks to the wise policy of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, who solidarity and the spirit of supporting the refugees find in the ground of Djibouti, conclude the President.
A working meeting to discuss and reflect on the implementation of investment project took place this morning at the People's Palace. This project is part of the program Integrate Reception and Safe Life in Djibouti called Zero Slum. This program is the democratization of access to decent housing at an affordable cost of households living in urban slums, and especially the development of road infrastructure to facilitate the movement of goods. And ceremony was presided by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ilyas Musa Dewale, was attended by several ministers such as Minister of Transport and Equipment Mr. Musa Ahmed Hassan, State Secretary for National Solidarity Ms. Zahra Yusuf Khayat, the Minister Delegate responsible for Housing, and representative of various ministerial departments concerned by this project. This program also aims to improve the living condition of the most disadvantaged of the capital population by the implementation of a project generating revenue as a stone of sides.
The Minister of Women's Empowerment and Family Planning in charge of the relation with the Parliament, Ms. Hasna Daoud Barkhad, visit this Sunday, February 14 at Yubuki for the opening of a reception center of the orientation for women of this locality, accompanied by a member of delegation of the region, such as Mr. Musa Souleh, Ms. Aisha Dabbar, the prefect of Dikhil, Ms. Mohammed Sheikho. The minister received a warm welcome from the inhabitants of Yubuki, who massively mobilized for this occasion. The main objective of this center is to train women and girls in sewing and making handicraft for the development of the traditional industries. The center will also be a gathering place, consultation, and thus constitute a level for social development of the locality. At the ceremony, the minister has made a delivery of computer kits to two associations, the locality in this case, Association for the Development and Charity, and Sport and Cultural Association.
On the sidelines of this event, the minister and his delegation visit the first bakery of Yubuki, which has the distinction of being held by a woman, in this case Miss Fatuma Abdallah Muhammad, known under the nickname of Tergalo. Let's recall that this center was built by the financial support of the League of Arab Countries and fully equipped by the Minister of Women's Empowerment. The population, for its part, did not fail to thank the minister for this building and will allow the women of Yubuki to strengthen its empowerment.
A cable project committee submarine call data has been held this morning at the Kempeski Palace Hotel to discuss the final formation and allocation of capacity of the dark cable. More detail in this report.
The operators of the Somalian-Kenyan region have came to Djibouti to confirm their level of financial participation. The interest of this project was entrusted by Tanzanian operators, including the Zambine. Remember that this project is projected of $140 million with a capacity of 20 turbines. The cable there is designed to meet, on the one hand, the IP traffic growing need of our region and to accelerate the economic integration. At the opening of the meeting that is taken place this morning, the General Director of Djibouti Telecom, Mohamed Assouibou, has held a speech recalling that the submarine cable plays a major role in the sub-region. He said, "Let me take this opportunity to wish you on behalf of the Djibouti Telecom and the Department of Communication responsible for the post and telecommunication of the welcome to Djibouti, and I would like to address my sincere thanks to all members of the council team there and cabinet of Aximan for the work accomplished since the launch of this project in April 2015. Once again, let me insist the importance of the project there, which no doubt continues an opportunity for the operators in the region with a capacity of 20 terabytes by the cable there aims to respond on the one hand on a growing need in the IP traffic of our region and to accelerate the economic integration. The Africa, Asia, Europe, the #1 cable landed in Djibouti last week, and the 5 arrived in early March in Haramous station. Under the leadership of the State Secretary for Youth and Sport, the Djiboutian Federation of Athletes, in collaboration with the IFA, have organized this morning a training course and technical official certification at the Guled Stadium. This training aims to train judges or professional starters to take part in this development of athletics in Djibouti. This training is provided by a Moroccan expert in management of a competition, and it will last until February 19, 2016. Training course brought together 20 young participants with the participation of the second Vice President of the Federation of Athletics in Djibouti, Mr. Jama Roble, official of a Federation Athletes.
The second day of the sport competition as a part of the final phase of the National Youth Game that will be run for 1 week, indeed, after opening with a match sang last Friday by the President of the Republic at the Guled Stadium. These major sporting and cultural events of the beginning of the new year bring together the best of the best national athletes under 18-year-old. And because the current final phase was preceded by a series of competition held throughout the year of 2015, and whose goal was to select the best team in each discipline. There was an intra-district phase followed by a second inter-district phase. The top team in each district has confronted those of other districts, eventually leading to the finalists who represent the town or region to the final phase of the National Youth Game. 8 different competitions in select discipline is ongoing, a part of the final phase of the National Youth Game. Yesterday it was the table tennis, the discipline that argument was a great stadium. For this discipline it is a finalist in the male and female categories are Bulaus against Balbala, Bulaus against Dikhil. At the end of this final phase of the town or region will harvest the maximum point, will receive as a reward and obtain $1 million francs. Still on the sport news, now of the provisional classification, the regional and municipality first Bulaus have 15 points, Tajura 45 points, Balbala 33 points, Ali Sabih 13 points, Obor 26 points, Arta 27 points, Razdika 25 points, and finally Dikhil 22 points.
A medal ceremony was held this morning in the Haramain city, 16 kilometers from the Tanzanian capital, to the Harbor Junior and Senior Arab Championship of a 22 edition lacrosse race country. The Djiboutian Mr. Jamal Abdi and Ibrahim Hassan have ranked the first and the second in the 8-kilometer race. The president of the Arab Athletics Federation, Mr. Ibrahim Al Al Zaid present the medal at the Arab Junior Championship for the year of 2016 in Djibouti. The athlete Jamal Abdi Dirie, who traveled with a time of 23 minutes and 70 seconds, while Ibrahim Hassan About has received the silver medal with a time of 23 minutes and 36 seconds. During the day of 14 February 2016, the police station of the Lac Assal, reinforced by those of the Gendarmerie Mobile, jointly conducted a search operation in the Leita sector. During this operation, the police have arrested 156 Ethiopian origin migrants wishing to travel to all the Gulf countries. These were awakened to hunger and trust. Humanitarian assistance in food and water was provided for these migrants. These migrants were returned to the day of 2016 on the border of Galilee with the ruling means of the gendarmerie. The forces is the force of the forefront in providing assistance to the population on the move, because it is on all the path taken by migrants. Just in recent year, the force has renewing the country more than 25,000 migrants.
And now with the regional news, the Libyan Naval Force say they have seized a Sierra Leone flag oil tank on suspension of illegally entering Libyan water is in an attempt to smuggle gasoline. A spokesman for the Naval Force allied to Tripoli self-declared government said the vessel, the Captain Cayman, was stopped in Libyan water on Friday night, 25 miles northwest of Zuhara city. Said Mohammed for more detail.
The Coast Guard of Libya's self-declared government has seized a foreign tanker that is said was smuggling nearly 2 million liters of gasoline. The officials in Tripoli identified the tanker as the Captain Kahayan and said the Coast Guard intercepted Friday. The tanker crew is from Azerbaijan and Ukraine. This was unclear under which country flag it was sailing, but at least 2 reports said it was Sierra Leone. Libya is torn between 2 rival governments, an Islamic-backed administration in Tripoli and the internationally recognized government in Tobruk. The UN effort to put together a unity government that can assert its authority have not succeeded, allowing such extremist groups such as the Islamic State to seize many territories.
The Southern Africa now. The world food security is increasingly being flagged as a major threat. This follows the United Nations World Food Programme announcement at the weekend that El Nino waters conditions across the globe are threatening vulnerable groups of people in many parts of the continent. Let's listen for more details.
The aid agencies are gearing up to help millions of people. Southern Africa survived one of the most driest years in more than 3 decades. The United Nations says 14 million people across Southern Africa do not know where their next meal are coming from. It says 2.5 million people are in crisis and require urgent humanitarian assistance. The region is in the grip of an intense dryness driven by one of the strongest El Nino climate events of the last 50 years. This phenomenon, El Nino, produced extreme dryness and acute water shortage in some part of the world and heavy rainfall in others. Lack of rain across Southern Africa has caused long delay in planting and has resulted in widespread crop failure. World Food Programme spokeswoman Bettina Lancha said that people are struggling to cope with the losses. They eat fewer and smaller meals, she said. But they also take their children out of school so their children can get little jobs somehow, help their families to make some money and try to get some food. They sell off their animals, their livestock, with a really low price. People in Western countries spend on average 15% of their income on food, but in developing countries people typically spend up 60% of their income, and now, because of the food scarcity, the prices are soaring.
The Syrian war cessation now. Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Barack Obama spoke by phone about the continuing conflict in Syria as a force loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and backed by a Russian air power pressed an offensive around Aleppo, the country's largest city. Officials in Moscow and Washington said Sunday. Detail in this following video.
Russia and the US have agreed to intensify diplomatic and other cooperation to implement an agreement on Syria struck in Munich. That from the Kremlin after phone talk between Barack Obama and Vladimir Putin. Major powers agreed on Friday that is to what is described as a temporary cessation of hostility in Syria, saying it would come into effect in a week. Several Western countries have said there is no hope for progress without an halt to Russia bombing campaign. What we see is more crime for about 2 days, more airstrike. We see more barrel bomb on Syria towns in Al-Ghouta and the siege still there on Madaya. Salem Al-Maslet, Syrian High Negotiation Committee spokesman, said Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told the Munich Security Conference on Saturday that the odds of a ceasefire being put in place in a week were less than 50%. The US Secretary of State John Kerry has accused Moscow of hitting legitimate opposition groups and civilians in its bombing campaign. Russia said its principal target is the Islamic State and Al-Nusra Front rebel group.
That was the English news. Thank you for your attention and enjoy with the rest of our program.